Hey everyone, thank you for joining us on this webinar where we're talking about workspaces in GitKraken. My name is Justin Roberts. I'm a Senior Director of Product at GitKraken. I have been working on the GitKraken client and other dev tools here for about the past 8 or 9 years. So really excited to be talking a little bit about some of the new functionality that we're building into our GitKraken client and into some of our other products. I'm joined here today by Kevin, who is a GitKraken ambassador. Kevin, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, thank you, Justin. I appreciate being on. My name is Kevin Bost. I'm a senior software architect with a professional services company called IntelliTect out of Spokane, Washington. I'm a Microsoft MVP, and as Justin mentioned, most importantly, a GitKraken ambassador.
Awesome. Welcome, Kevin. Good to have you here and excited to talk to you about some of these topics today.
Perfect. Glad to be here.
So just to get into the first topic, I want to talk about the managing multiple repositories and some of the challenges that dev teams have when they're working with multiple repos. One of the reasons why we built Workspaces was because we recognize that a lot of dev teams do work with multiple repos. And I know that there's a little bit of a debate going on now over mono repo versus multi-repo. There's obviously advantages to both, I think, right? In an ideal world, we might all like to be in one big mono repo where everything is on one big branch and or one big main kind of trunk, and we just branch off of that and work on one thing. It would be much easier for all of our build systems and everything. But the reality is there are microservices. There are things that require you to have multiple repositories, whether that's in your work or in your personal life. There's just going to be a case where you're working on more than one repository. So workspaces are a response to that. And the problems we were trying to solve are really pulling information about multiple repos into one place so that they're much easier to look at and to track. So if you're wanting to look at pull requests or issues or anything across multiple repos and you're doing that in GitHub or other platforms, sometimes that can get a little tedious because you're jumping between contexts. You're having to go from one repo to the next. So workspaces try to solve that by kind of creating these associations between them so that we can give you additional information that helps you work on them easier. Kevin, I understand that your team works with multiple repositories, and you want to show us a little bit about how that's working with your team?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I've been working on a team that's been building the essential C#.com website. And for a variety of reasons, we've had to spread our work out over different repositories. Some of them are permissions related, access, public versus private. But we've been actively using Workspaces as a way of being able to organize, bring everything together. And then also we've onboarded quite a few people onto the team recently. And so just going through that process has been essential. Let me share my screen and we will jump over and take a look at it.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so here we have the repositories tab inside of my Essential C# workspace. And you can see here, we've got half a dozen different repositories built out. It's a really quick and clean way for me to be able to see what repositories I need to be able to access, depending on what I'm working on. In this case, this machine, I've only touched a handful of the repositories. So I've only cloned the ones that I need, but I can see how far behind I am. I can have quick links back to GitHub where these things are being hosted. I can quickly jump around, and when a new developer comes on, it's a quick way to say, hey, here's where all of the code lives. Go get the following repositories.
Great. And have you experienced that with other team members yet? Have they been able to use Workspaces and kind of get the same benefits out of it?
We have. We've onboarded, I think in the last couple of weeks, about 3 new devs to the team. And so in each case, when they came on, I handed them the workspace and said, okay, here's what you need to clone, pull down the following repositories. It was quick, easy. Everything got fired up. Some of these repositories get even more complicated with submodules as well. So then just the GitKraken experience of being able to quickly initialize the submodules on a fresh clone ensures that everybody's set up and ready to go quickly.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the kind of multi-repo Git actions. That was another one of the challenges that we found a lot is devs would want to, pull all of their repos at once. And it gets kind of tedious if you have to go into a repo, do a pull, go into a repo, do a pull. So something that we added into this repositories view inside of Workspaces is that ability to pull all of the repos in there or select specific repositories and say, I only want to fetch these, or I only want to pull these. And when you do those fetches and you are able to do that across multiple repositories, when you see the status and that branch column of here's the branch that I'm working on, here's where the changes are, you can see that after that pull, now you're caught up to date. You were behind a little bit on one of those branches on one of those repos, and now everything's up to date. And that gets really hard when you're focused only on a specific repo. And it's one of the main reasons why we built the Workspaces tab, to do these kind of multi-repository actions and to get a high-level view of what's going on in a bunch of repositories at one time.
Yeah, and even the quick action for being able to jump over and open in an external editor or similar is really valuable, just being able to organize and group things together. I've also found that the multiple workspaces or the multiple repositories within the workspace also gives kind of a logical organization when I'm trying to figure out where to store my repositories on disk. Everything kind of starts to group into directories kind of following the workspace layout.
Yeah. It's a really common pattern, right? Like VS Code has workspaces, IntelliJ has projects. They have these structures that are kind of familiar with people that allow you to put repos into one group. And that is the goal of doing this in GitKraken. The advantage, I would say, that the cloud workspaces make that available wherever you go. So if you're going to log into another machine and open up GitKraken client, those cloud workspaces are going to be available to you with the same repositories. We've done a lot of work to make sure that the mapping of your local repositories to your remote repositories really works and is really seamless. That includes across products. We not only have the GitKraken client, but we have GitLens inside of VS Code. We're also working on a CLI tool, and all of them interface with cloud workspaces. So, we talked about onboarding team members. If you have a team member that's only working on the CLI, they don't have to use the client. They could go into the CLI, you invite them to the workspace, and they'll be able to do the same operations that we see here just through the command line. Pick all of those repos, clone them all, get started in the same way.
Awesome. That is wonderful.
So one of the challenges involved with working with multiple repositories is onboarding new team members. We've had challenges. I'm sure you've had challenges with onboarding team members. It was actually one of the reasons why we decided to build GitKraken client in the first place, is that getting people onto Git was super difficult. There's different operating systems. Everyone had different GUIs that they like to use. The configurations were all different. And it was just hours and hours and hours of onboarding time for every new dev to not just get them up to speed on Git and what tooling we were using, but to get them associated and recognize which repos they actually needed to work on. So workspaces are the kind of natural progression of needing to solve those onboarding problems for developers. And the easiest way that we thought to do that was just say, hey, here's a workspace. You can pass that to whatever dev is onboarding to your team. And instead of having them have to go out to GitHub or GitLab or wherever the repositories are stored and get all the clone URLs and go into the CLI and run a clone command for every URL, it's much easier to just say, here's all your repos in one action, just clone them all. And now they're all on your machine and you're running the same speed as everyone else on the team. I think that you've experienced this with your team. Do you have an example of how you'd like to show how that works with your repos?
Yeah, I'd love to. Let me kick over to my GitKraken client. We'll take a look.
Awesome.
Okay, so here we have my Essential C# workspace that I've been working on. When we've been bringing on new team members, this is one of the areas that I like to direct them to be able to find everything that they're looking for. When a new developer joins the team, the two big questions that they always ask: where's the code? Where's the backlog? How can I find, the stuff that I need to work on? How do I know what I should be working on? And this has been the centralized place where our team has been going to be able to see that kind of information, being able to take a look at the issues that either have been created by me for people to assign out to different team members, or for a lot of them, looking at the issues that have been assigned to them to be able to go through and find. And then also keeping track of what pull requests are opened. Oftentimes with all of our new ones, that's one of the processes of onboarding a new dev, is walking them through, okay, here's the flow that we expect for the application lifecycle. Open the pull requests, get the reviews, get the approves, go ahead and get the merge that occurs. And oftentimes we expect people who open the PR to be the one to actually do the completion, whether that be an autocomplete or actually clicking the button themselves, but also finding out when things are appropriately reviewed. And so being able to keep track of all of the pull requests, especially across repositories. Somebody may be working on a ticket that spans 2 or 3 repositories and has to open up a bunch of pull requests, and not having those things get lost in the wind as people are trying to keep track of everything.
Yeah, I agree. I think giving developers a place to focus and say, like, this is just your most important stuff. This is everything that you're responsible for, that you've either opened or someone else has added to you as a reviewer. So to have one place that you can come in and look at everything really streamlines that flow, especially for new devs to the team, because they can be hyper-focused on the stuff that they know is relevant to them. We had talked earlier about how you can clone with GitKraken Workspaces. Do you have an example of how that might work in the repositories view for someone who was added to your team and might not have the repos on their machine yet?
Sure, happy to. So from the repositories tab, I will go through and I'll pick on one of the ones that I just haven't cloned yet. I've got the Essential C#, our status repository. I can go through. It remembers where I've put the last several ones that I cloned, so I'll just keep the same directory, hit clone, and I've got the repository being pulled down. Quick, easy. I now have everything I need to start working in there.
Yeah, I'm glad that went fast. I think that where our team put a lot of effort into is making that clone really seamless and making it super fast, even synchronously cloning multiple repositories. So if you had to clone 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 repos at the same time, you can just click one button, click and clone all of those synchronously. So we've put a lot of work into making sure that those processes run super smooth, super fast, and get developers kind of up and running as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's been fairly seamless for everything that we've been doing.
Are there any other examples of specific pains that you've had with onboarding that this tool has helped with new developers?
The biggest issues, like I said at the beginning, have really been around making sure developers know where the code is and where the items are to work on. After that, it's really been just a matter of making sure that when they can clone the repository, that everything works just fine. We do everything in .NET, so the gold standard for us is clone the repository, open Visual Studio, press F5. That's how hard it should be for a new dev to get up and going on this. And we've done quite a bit of work on all of our repositories to make sure that they work that way. Because there's nothing more frustrating for a dev than getting a fresh clone and then having to try to figure out, how do I make this thing work? And so having all of that in one easy place and being able to quickly jump to those repositories as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Do for people on your team, do they start work from the workspace as well, or do they start their work on issues through another path?
I think that's going to really depend from team member to team member. I think a lot of them actually end up going through the issues on GitHub directly, finding the issue that they want to assign to themselves, and then start working from there. At least for stand-up review, I oftentimes find myself focused on either the focus view to kind of talk through what is there and assigned to me. I tend to be the team lead, so I'm often doing more reviews than actual dev myself. So I'm often focused on, okay, what are the pull requests that have been assigned to me to review for the team? Let's talk through any challenges people have been having. So having this centralized place, because email notifications get lost. There's too many of them. They flow through, and all I'm really interested in is what's open and assigned to me that still is actively looking to get the review back for me.
All right. So another topic that I wanted to talk about briefly is just the integration of project management tools. We talked a little bit about how, different teams use different platforms. Some people host on GitHub, some people host on GitLab or Bitbucket. And for issue tracking, Some teams will stay with that Git hosting provider and use the issues inside of GitHub or inside of GitLab. But often it seems like teams will use a different issue tracker like Jira or something else that is already maybe ingrained in the broader company kind of ethos, is that we just use Jira for all of our issues. So what we wanted to work on with Workspaces was making it as kind of flexible and provider or service agnostic as possible. So we already support a lot of different Git providers, but we do allow you with Workspaces to kind of mix and match and blend Jira tickets and GitHub issues and try to associate them as much as possible. So I wanted to just show a quick demo of kind of what that looks like in GitKraken in general, how you might blend Jira tickets with GitHub issues. So let me share my screen real quick and I'll show you what GitKraken looks like in that kind of an environment. What we're seeing here is a repository. This is the GitKraken repository actually. And what we have is when we use Jira issues, we have them so that they're accessible right within the repository. So if you want to get started on working on something, you can come into these issues and pick one from the list. You can even see what that issue is and get started on a branch right away. And it's that kind of flow that we're trying to improve so that there's less context switching, jumping out to Jira, jumping back into a client, jumping out to GitHub. And it's more about just looking at the things that you need to get done and taking action on those. So in this example, I could create a branch for this issue, choose where I want that to go, create the branch, and now I'm off and running, right? I can start coding on whatever IDE I like, but now I've got the branch set up so that I know like that branch is going to be tied back to whatever issue I'm working on. We're using the same kind of naming conventions. When we go and take a look at Workspaces, we're doing the same kind of thing. You can see that I have some issues here or some pull requests here that are from the repository in GitHub, but we also have the ability to look at issues from Jira. So I can say, like, these are the things that I'm working on that are assigned to me in Jira, and very easily take one of those issues and start a branch from here as well. So what we're trying to capture in this is this kind of full flow, this starting work off of an item that you have to work on wherever that item lives, going all the way through to opening up a pull request and then being able to manage and monitor and track the pull requests that you're involved with so that you can take action on them, so you can see which ones might be causing a problem that, you know, maybe they've been open for too long, or maybe they're really complex and you need to go talk to that person to kind of guide them through what they need to do. That is the whole point of using the focus view, using Workspaces, and combining these multiple different types of systems, hosting providers and issue providers in one place. When we talk about team collaboration, we also have a team view inside of GitKraken that kind of tries to do the same thing. It looks across all of your repos and all of the people in your team to say, what are all of the pull requests everyone's working on, and what are the issues that are assigned to them? I know that you have some examples that you wanted to share about how your team uses some of these views for stand-up. So I'm going to stop sharing and hand that off to you and let you talk a little bit about how you use Workspaces for your team, for stand-ups and things like that where you need to collaborate.
Yeah, I'd love to. So for us, one of the big things is often just reviewing metrics. And so the Insights view, I actually enjoy pulling up during stand-up. Partially because my team's been doing awesome the last month, and it's been great to see kind of the numbers and the graphs flowing through. Just this morning, I had the CEO ask us about, hey, what's the status of the project? How are we coming along? Are we going to hit our due dates? And it was pretty easy to go, yeah, we're doing great. We're well ahead of schedule. Things are falling off. I can give reasonably good estimates of, hey, this is how many things are being opened, closed. Just being able to show, hey, our pull requests and our cycle time are pretty low. Everything's coming in. The team's actively reviewing. Stuff is moving back and forth. I've very much been enjoying doing the 14 or 7 day filtering, just because the teams that I work with, they tend to either work on a 1 week or 2 week sprint. So it falls right nicely into those buckets of being able to show that information. The other one that we will often do, especially kind of as we're going through and doing each team member update, is we'll walk through each person's kind of open pull requests to see if there's any challenges, if they're looking for feedback. You can see as some of these are open as drafts. And so being able to say, hey, what's the holdup on this one? What's blocking? Is this just you need more time? Are you looking for feedback? And having that kind of interaction and dialogue, and then being able to jump out and take a look at them. So being able to look, and I was hoping to pick on one that actually had comments. I think we go here, of being able to say, okay, look, everything that was on here before has now been resolved. Let's see what we can do to get this reviewed and actually merged into place. So this has been an awesome tool to just be able to keep track of all these and not having to switch repos, figuring out where the repos are, having everything shown just in the one list where it's quick and easy to kind of walk through each of them. I also very much enjoy this complexity because as the old saying goes, 4 lines changed, there's 10 comments, 100 lines changed, looks good to me, right? That's the long running joke of the pull request. So you can see some of these, it's pretty obvious. This is big. Some of them are small, and it also gives me, especially when I'm looking to review stuff, kind of a gut shot metric of, is this something I can review in the 15 minutes that I have, or is this something that I need to, grab another Mountain Dew and devote some time to actually looking through all of this stuff?
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up. That is something that we're starting to layer more into these pull request views. That complexity is a relatively new feature. But what we were finding is that, the number of files changed or lines changed is not always the best indicator of size, right? You might have changed or deleted a bunch of lines, but that's because you completely just removed a module, and those don't necessarily need to be removed. They just or reviewed. It just got removed, right? So it just went away. Right. So some combination of the number of lines changed, the number of files changed, and some sense of what was going on in those is what we're trying to explore with that complexity column, in really calling out, like you said, if I was going to skim this list of PRs and look at the ones that might be causing the most problems or might be delayed the most, it's those ones that have the 4 red squares on them, because there's a lot going on there. And we're working a lot on refining what that means, building better heuristics to try to call things out like that, because that's what we're finding that you don't get in a lot of hosting service provider web views, right? If you go into GitHub or GitLab, it's just really here's all the stuff that you have assigned to you. You have to do a lot of filtering to try to get it down to a team list. And even then, it's hard to tell, well, I don't know which ones of these I can just kind of pick off really quickly and just get done. Or if there's something here that, I'm going to have to pull someone else into. I might have to evaluate who's actually reviewing that PR and see if there's someone else that might want to come in and help them. And having that at a high level across all your repositories is super valuable in kind of increasing the velocity of your team, making sure that there's not things that are kind of consistently holding you back and keeping you from moving fast. And you showed the Insights tab, and that's kind of the really high level view of just how the team is doing in these cases, trying to kind of accelerate themselves and trying to make the team move faster. We really see that as a tool that teams can use to make themselves better, right? There are some tools out there that try to use it punitively and say the team cycle time is really going down. And that's not where we see these insights that we're talking about bringing into our products. They're really focused on developers being able to visualize what's happening and make sense of what might be slowing the whole team down, not to be punitive, but to say I can look into where the team might have slowed down last week, or for example, and look into what might have caused that and say we had a bunch of really big PRs that came through, and such was on vacation and we didn't reassign them to the right person. And those are all things that a dev team can just work on in their everyday flow to try to make their own processes faster. And we're seeing that here internally. We look at these tools and we use it as an opportunity to communicate better across the team, how we can all be improving and where we might have bottlenecks that just no one would be aware of if we didn't have the ability to visualize it.
Yeah, I really like that description of it because we often use these metrics as discussion points, like even looking at the age of these PRs, right? The ones that in red are probably discussion point ones, like the team needs to have a talk. Why has this thing been sitting here for 3 weeks? In this case, we've got a blocker. Not a big deal, but as long as that discussion is happening and this is a tool to help facilitate that, that's really the big thing for us. And ironically, even the two examples that you just gave of, why my team's insights may have dropped going through here, it's the exact two cases that you just said. One guy's out on vacation. We had a couple big issues come through that slowed down, so we had some massively huge PRs like this one coming through here. It took some team members some time to slow down and do that, and so not all PRs are created equal. But it's all about getting the work done and making sure that we can facilitate that kind of discussion so that the team can decide what's the best path forward.
Awesome. I'm glad to see that it's making an impact there. All right, Kevin. Well, I really appreciate you coming on to join me to talk about workspaces. Some of the things that we talked about were, the challenges in managing multiple repositories and how teams kind of struggle a little bit when there are lots of repositories to deal with, especially when they're onboarding new developers and they're bringing people onto the team that need to be caught up to speed on everything that the team is already doing. Talked a little bit about integrating with project management tools like GitHub and with Jira, and really how we can use workspaces to help teams collaborate better, to streamline their processes, and work really effectively across multiple repos. I really appreciate you taking the time to share with us some of your screens and some of your give us some insights into your projects that you're working on. I think that's really valuable for everyone who's kind of maybe asking questions about what workspaces are and how they might use them to get a visual of how that works. So thank you again for joining us.
Perfect. Thank you, Justin, for having me on. I really appreciate the opportunity. Workspaces are quickly becoming one of my favorite features of GitKraken. So look forward to see where we go in the future.
Awesome. Great to hear. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.